Okay, hello, welcome to episode 2 of Voices for Scotland. It's a fairly new podcast about Voices for Scotland, and also we're talking about issues that's been in the news as well. If you've missed episode 1, you can get Kit on Twitter. Just look for Voices for Scotland on Twitter. I'm joined by Alan from Voices again. Hi.
Hello, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It's been a busy 2 weeks since
I
we last
know,
spoke.
I know. I mean, it just seems like there's so much going on, and everything's changing every minute. I'm sure we'll talk about plenty of that today, anyway.
Yeah. It's not been a quiet time. Put it that way.
No,
you know.
not at all, not at
Um,
all.
so how's things with Voices? I know.
Yeah, like, we are just super busy at the moment. It's a really busy time, but a tough time as well because obviously we're still in furlough, so we're limited by how much we can work at the moment. Um, but clearly the debate and discussion around independence is very much needed at the moment, because a lot of people are unhappy with the current state of play in British politics, and see independence, and more people are seeing independence as the best opportunity for us to make society better and make society work again. So yeah, been really busy. We've had a lot of events happening. We've got a lot of events coming up as well. And then we're got various things in the pipeline in terms of the campaign as well. So it's just been, yeah, it's been super busy. Yeah.
I suppose that we need to explain to people that we're going to be here every 2 weeks speaking about current affairs, independence, and all the rest of it in the middle. So on the first podcast, we spoke about what Voices for Scotland is,
Yeah.
and trying to get the name out there. So I was gives a kind of like general overview, but now that because we're beginning to do more podcasting every, as I say, 2 weeks, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of Google Scottish politics and maybe some British politics as well if we're lucky. So let's kick off now with the news of this week. That Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon basically came out and gave the country a rap on the risks, if you know what I mean. So it's not a kind of like total kind of lockdown again, because I don't think nobody could put up with a full lockdown again. But so, I mean, how did you feel about it, Alan? Before we get into it, but how do you feel about what happened this week?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's got to happen, really. I mean, something's got to happen because the um, the number of cases is obviously increasing again, which that happening, I guess, shouldn't really be that much of a surprise because everybody's spoken about it as we move towards winter. There's an expectation that there will be more cases of COVID-19. What maybe is a bit of a surprise is the timing, that the increase in numbers is happening at this time. That could be down to a number of factors, people going back to school, going to uni, people just becoming a little bit, letting the guard down a little bit. So, yeah, I think I guess we'll see over the next couple of weeks if these measures actually work in terms of bringing the number of cases down, and I really hope they do. But if they don't, then I guess we have to expect further measures and possibly even a return to something like the lockdown we saw in the earlier part of the year. I think one of the things to really bear in mind about this is a global pandemic. This is a health crisis, and that's got to be, I mean, people's health has got to be really at the forefront of any decision making. And I think generally, I mean, you read a lot of stuff on Twitter, on social media about, you know, people not believing it or not being against the lockdown or not wanting to wear a mask or all the rest of it. But I think that's just that sort of social media bubble. If you look at the polls, so YouGov did a poll, and 78% of British people support these new measures. So, you know, a huge majority in favour of it because they recognise that there's a need for it. So, so yeah, I think it's definitely needed. What about you? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, yeah, I sort of agree with everything you're saying, but sometimes it's a bit weird kind of thing. Like, especially when you go out to restaurants or cafes or whatever, then they ask for your phone number and obviously name. One cafe I went into last weekend, but I thought that it was a bit weird. They were asking for your car registration number as well, and I thought that's a bit weird to ask for your car registration number.
Did they say why they were asking for that?
Well, no, it was actually in the door before you went in, and
Right.
I won't mention the name. And stuff like that. Obviously I'll tell you later. But yeah, so and I guess for that was a bit weird because that was the first place I've been in that
Yeah.
they've been asking for that. But I think like we've got to take into consideration if we do go back to another lockdown, how will that affect people's kind of mental health, basically, and all that, you know, and I'm just worried about how people will cope, especially kind of like elderly people as well, because I mean,
Yeah.
they don't realise, maybe they do, but they don't realise what's going on and stuff. So yeah, it's a worrying time, but I mean, it's like everybody's got to suffer because people didn't listen to the rules the first time around. So I don't know. It's like if I was to sum up the year to now, and I'm not wishing my life away, but like I would say this was a year that never was.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been an exceptional year. Nothing like this has happened since the Spanish flu. So there would be very few people, if at all, that can remember that. So yeah, I mean, but I mean that's a really important point. Is that the how this affects people's mental health, and you know, like most things, it's about finding the right balance. And I don't envy the people that have got to make these decisions about what we do to stem this. And it's a really difficult time because yeah, for so many people it means that they don't get to see their family and they don't get to see their friends, and so there's a breakdown of those social interactions, which of course has such a negative impact on people's mental health. You know, people that are isolated and alone, you know, I can't even imagine how difficult this year has been for them, and to be faced with the prospect of that again. Particularly, what makes it even more difficult, I think, is that we're moving towards the winter months, and particularly in Scotland, those can be pretty bleak, pretty dark, wet, windy, rainy. And if you are sort of locked away in the house all the time, then it's going to be really difficult, because obviously over the course of the summer, you know, we were, for those of us that could, were able to get out and, you know, get a takeaway beer or get a takeaway coffee and sort of have a stroll around. And although you weren't with other people, you could see other people in the park, and that was something that was like a little bit of solace. But as we approach winter, it's going to be much more difficult. And I think definitely mistakes were made, and it's difficult to say what they are. I think hindsight will make it clear what those are, but I think that there's been a lot of mixed messaging, particularly from the government in Westminster, about getting back to work. They're so focused on getting. They really didn't find the balance, in my opinion. I don't think so. And by the way, when I'm speaking here, I'm not really speaking as Voices for Scotland. I'm speaking for me. Voices for Scotland doesn't have a position on the government's decision on whatever, because we're a civic organisation. Our ideas come from the voices of other people, but so this is really just my opinion. But I think that the Westminster government didn't get the balance right. When numbers came down and infection rate came down in sort of June, July time, or July time, there was far too much focus on the economy, encouraging people to get back to work. They want understand about wanting to support businesses and but it was a recipe for disaster. People having to go back into the spaces, having to use public transport, because not everybody has a car, and people don't always have those options. And the biggest tragedy of all of this is the people that are. It's the COVID has disproportionately affected different people in society. So I think I saw a stat this morning. I think that I think it's something like around about 56, 57% to 58% of people that have died from coronavirus have been people with disabilities. Obviously, we know as well that it affects people of colour as well, more as well. So that's been the biggest threat. It hasn't affected everybody equally, and I think that's just a massive tragedy and something that it needs to be addressed. And yeah, the lockdown that's happening, or this sort of the restrictions that we're seeing, need to happen, I think, to stop the spread.
In terms of kind of like, if we were talking in football terms here, how would you rate Nicola Sturgeon's performance against Boris Johnson? And before I ask you that question, I think I know what you're going to say, and I'll come back to what I'm going to say in a minute. But what about you? How do you think the Nicola Sturgeon's performed against Boris Johnson in all of this?
I don't really want to compare them, because I think I don't really want to compare them. I think the biggest difference for me, though, is that one of them seems to have a lot of empathy and understanding for the plight of the majority of people, whilst the other one doesn't. And I think which is which. But yeah, I don't. One thing that I've always been pretty adamant about is not politicizing the coronavirus, and not trying to make it an issue about who's done better or worse, or I think
I wasn't really, well, maybe I was, but I wasn't really getting at that as such. I was maybe getting at the kind of how they care for the nation and that the body damage. I'll tell you why I was asking you that for.
Yeah.
Because Nicola Sturgeon introduced like the face masks and all that weeks before Boris Johnson did, and all that, and it's not. Yeah, you're right. Of course, it's not about point scoring. It's about saving lives and stuff. But I guess feels all that. And I guess feels though we were let down again by the PM, not only Scotland but the UK as you use that word loosely, as a whole, and all that. And I'll tell you another reason why I was kind of let down in the way that there was, this coronavirus isn't kind of like going away anytime soon, as you know.
No.
But Westminster gave up doing the news conferences a few months ago. Now, I've got to ask myself why that is. compared to all the other dissolving, all the other governments, they still do it every day. In fact, the Scottish government was going at 6 days a week. Obviously, when lockdown started and everybody was indoors, but now they do it kind of like Monday to Friday now, you know.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing, and this is that in this time of crisis, and that's exactly what it is. One of the most important things is information, clear, concise, useful information for members of the public, so they know what they need to do, they know what they can do, and what they know what they can't do. I think that's, if you want a comparison, I think that Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish Government has done much better at communicating than Boris Johnson has. There's been a lot of mixed messages coming from Westminster, whereas I think things have been a lot clearer in Scotland. I think there still is an element of confusion though, because of the way that maybe people access their information, access their news. Because if you listen to Radio 4 in the morning, then you get a particularly sort of British, a more English-focused news, whereas things are slightly different. The rules are different in Scotland for different things. So I think that's, you know, if you want to do any sort of comparison, I think one of the main things really is about the communication and about making the information clear for people. I think that's been really important. But yeah, I think another thing, which I don't know how much people really know about this, but one of the, again, if you're looking for comparisons, there's been a lot of dodgy deals going on in the background. So I don't know how much you've heard about this, but the UK government have been awarding millions and millions of pounds for PPE, for sanitisers to companies that there was one dormant company that doesn't seem to really exist. One's linked to an even evangelical Christian sect, and we're talking hundreds of millions of pounds here. So all this money's just been given out to people that have got close links to Tory MPs, so people that have either donated money to the Tory party in the past, people with close links to Dominic Cummings as well. So there's a whole load of corruption going on in the background, and we're talking where the money that's been given to these companies is approaching £1 billion. And you know, one of the things that made the news, I think it was probably a month ago, was I think it was £50 million on spent on PPE that was out of date. So, you know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and I mean that kind of stuff is, though I'm sure there'll be an investigation into that in the future. But at the moment, I think the important thing really is for people to have that clear information, which I think you are getting from the Scottish Government, and to know what they need to do to curb what people can do at an individual and community level to stop the spread of coronavirus. So hopefully those messages keep coming out, and hopefully we can turn the corner on this and get the numbers down before winter, because we don't know what's going to happen then.
Just quickly, I know I said to you before we've done this, but I think it's a point well made, you've kind of set it up and away from me about communication, that when Nicola Sturgeon and Boris Johnson was doing the addressing to the nation the other night on the TV, and I think it was good how the BBC covered the two addressing, like they had I think somebody said to me that they had a special programme, and they covered it, and I missed it, but I made a point of watching it, and I could clearly see that Nicola Sturgeon had a signer behind her, so it was like 2 meters behind her, where Boris Johnson didn't.
Yeah.
when going back to when Boris Johnson did his press conferences every day at the corona briefing, he didn't really have a sign up behind him. And I was reading a report that like the deaf community was actually taking legal action against Westminster, because they feel as though that it's against people's human rights. That because the first minister always comes out and says that this coronavirus doesn't say, oh well, that person's disabled, that person's deaf. We can't give them it. Everybody will be hit, so everybody like needs to know what's going on. So I was so disappointed in kind of like the Westminster government kind of like doing that, and I suppose like they're letting people down, especially when they're deaf or mute kind of thing, But looking at the other governments in the UK, Alan, that they do it and all that, and that's not a big issue. But apparently, Westminster came out and said, "Oh yeah, we do have a signer, but it's on BBC News 24." So what I was saying to you before was, so does that mean if you're watching it with like your partner or whatever, then you wouldn't be able to watch it with them because it's on BBC One, and you wouldn't know what the Prime Minister's saying and all that, and you would have to go on I don't know. You would have to go in a different room, as it were, to watch it. You know what I mean? I think the point I'm trying to get is we shouldn't really be separated or different. We should be the same. If that
I mean, I think the fact that it's come to legal action is absolutely ridiculous. I think they should, like I said earlier on, like information is absolutely key, and that information has got to be available to everyone. So they should absolutely have somebody signing on that. If for some reason there was some oversight and they didn't think about it, then apologise and make sure that the next time there's a briefing, there is somebody signing. I find that completely bizarre, particularly as we said that how people with disabilities are disproportionately affected by coronavirus. I think that's absolutely ridiculous that's been the case, that it's actually now come. So you say it's coming to legal action now, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's human rights as well. You know what I mean? Because this coronavirus just hits anyone. It doesn't really care if you're disabled, deaf, old. You know what I mean? It hits like the whole everybody in society, and stuff. So yeah, the deaf community was a bit up in arms about it and all that. To rightly so, Yeah,
absolutely. Well, yeah, I hope that gets resolved quickly for the briefings that are going to be coming up, because until there's a vaccine, this isn't going away, is it? We're going to have to live with it until a vaccine arrives, and how we live with it and the impact that it has upon our lives is really dependent on being able to control it as much as possible. So people need to have the information to know what the current situation is, what they can and can't do, who they can and can't meet, where they can and can't go. And obviously we want as much freedom as possible. I want to be able to go and see my niece and my nephew. I want to be able to go and see my family. But I understand that right now that we have to maybe make a sacrifice for hopefully only a few weeks until the numbers come down again, and I can go back and do that. I can, go and meet them and like I say, it was my nephew's birthday yesterday and I couldn't go and give him a hug, you know what I mean? So it's those sort of things we're missing out on, and it's just, we're missing out on all these sort of important moments.
It's kind of like wee things, but they're not wee things, if you know what I mean. They mean so much to you than, gives a hug or
No, it really does. It really does. Obviously, I mean, just that's just one thing from a personal point of view. I'm absolutely gutted that I couldn't go and see my nephew yesterday for his birthday. But there's people in a much worse situation than me. But missing out on weddings and birthdays, and some people not being able to go to funerals as well, which must be one of the most awful things, to not be able to go and say goodbye to somebody. It must be awful. But we're all having to make these sacrifices, and I don't want to be making them for much longer. I want this to be over. I want the virus at least to be under control until the vaccine does arrive. But people need to have the right information to know what they have to do to get to that stage. So these briefings have got to happen. The information's got to be there. It's got to be accessible for everybody, so that people know what the measures are and what they've got to do. So I hope that things improve on that front, and that we can turn a corner on this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast and stuff. If you get in the comments to make, what's the best way of people getting in contact, Gavin?
Yeah, listen, we're always, we're Voices for Scotland. We want to hear from people. We want to hear what's important to you. So get in touch with us on Twitter. We're at Voices for Scot. Or on Facebook, we're at Voices for Scotland. We're also on Instagram as well, at Voices for Scot. Or just drop us an email, info@voicesforscotland.scot. And, let us know what's important to you. If you want to get involved with the podcast, if you want to be on the podcast, then yeah, absolutely get in touch and we can arrange that. We also do events every week. So we have two different types of event. We've either got a get-together event, which is an informal chat for people to come together and talk about the things that are important to you, and you set the agenda on that as well. So let us know what you want to talk about, and then we'll organise it, and people from across Scotland come together to talk about stuff. Also, if you want to organise your own event, we can help you to do that as well. The other type of event we have is the In Conversation events, where we have guest speakers. So I think the next one we've got coming up is on the 8th of October, I think. Could be getting my dates wrong, and that's with Sarah Sheridan, which I think will be such an interesting talk. But all that information is on our website, voicesforscotland.scot, and you can head over to our events page as well. And then the last thing, just to get in before we go, obviously we're funded by small donations as well. So if people want to donate to keep this going, to keep the podcast going, to keep the events going, and keep the campaign going as well, because ultimately what we're here to do is to grow support for independence. So we're making great inroads into that. We need to do more. We want to expand our team. We want to grow, but we can only do that with donations. So if people are able to give a little bit of money every month, that would be amazing as well. So again, head over to our website, voicesforscotland.scot, and you can go to the donate section there and get involved with that. That'd be amazing.
Okay, well, we'll speak again in a few weeks' time, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.